So Gypsy Rose says that she did indeed spend some time in seg or segregation, the hole, the shoe, whatever you want to call it, while she was in prison. But of course, you already knew, of course, it wasn't her fault, just as nothing is ever her fault in her life. So I was watching part of a live that another creator had posted. And in this live, it was Bree and Christy and another woman. Don't quote me, I think her name was maybe Shayna, maybe. I'm not 100% sure on that. Anyways, they're at Christy's house. And these girls, they're having a great time. They seem that they probably had quite a few drinks or something. Something was going on there. They were very giggly and kind of all over the place. And in this live, those three are pictured. And Shayna or whatever her name is, oh, she's extremely hot for Ken, which I find strange anyways. Christy's kind of sitting there in her own little world. And Bree, of course, doing all the talking. And they invite to the live. There's Gypsy. And then Dreamer later comes in. Ooh, that woman's a mess too, let me tell you. And some other people that I'm not as familiar with. So anyways, they get to talking, and Bree asks Gypsy, had she ever been to the hole, as she called it? You know, seg, as I said before, seg, the hole, solitary, the shoe, whatever. For purposes of this video, I'm going to call it seg, because that's how I'm familiar with it. And like I said, Gypsy said it wasn't her own fault. Now, here's what Gypsy's story. Apparently, somebody, she didn't specify, so I assume it's just some random person, puts on social media something to the effect of, they want to get Gypsy out, referring to out of prison. And that's all she says. So somebody, she doesn't specify who, so I'm assuming a random person, notifies the prison that this other random person makes this random post, very generic post, I want to get Gypsy out, or I wish I could get her out, something to that effect. They get Gypsy and throw her into seg. Come on now. Now I'm going to be 100% transparent, real with you here. I have done prison time, so I am familiar with how the system works. Not in each state, of course, just the state I live in. I'm familiar with how that. Was there one time, not for an extremely long amount of time, but 3 years. I was in this prison 3 years, so long enough to know how things work and what goes on in prisons. Okay. And she claims they put her in there into seg for 2 weeks, because of the possibility that she may escape. I never have heard of such a thing, because seg is not a place they put you before you do something wrong, before you break a rule. Seg is a punishment. It is a consequence to you doing something you're not supposed to do, breaking a rule. You didn't properly wear your uniform, or, you had contraband, or, any number of things, But they're not, in my opinion, okay, I'm not saying it couldn't happen, because anything can happen in prison. These COs can make up anything. Even if they can make up the wildest story and put you in seg and say, this, and this happened. Okay? Personally, thank goodness I was never there. I crossed my T's and dotted my I's while I was there. I mean, it was bad enough. I don't want to be in a cell by myself. I'd rather be in the pod with all the other women. But I cannot see being placed into seg as a disciplinary action for something that you might do. She, according to her, there was no indication that she may attempt an escape. It's not as if she was hanging on the fence or anything like that, or making any kind of threats of leaving, or they didn't find any written communication between her and anybody else of this. Nothing. A random post by a random person is randomly called in, and she gets sent to seg because of a possibility of an escape attempt. I call bullshit. If Gypsy was in seg, I guarantee it wasn't seg, it was protective custody, because she was afraid in there That's the only way I can see it. Or, it's possible she did break some rule and she using this as an excuse. I don't know. But anybody else, let me know what you think. Do you think that this story adds up? Do you think that, number one, if Gypsy had been to SEG, do you think she would play place in there for something that she could possibly do wrong? Has anybody ever heard of anything like that? I mean, I've only ever heard of SEG being used as that is what basically you're sentenced to, this many days because you broke a rule. You did something you weren't supposed to do, or you didn't do something you were supposed to do, or you get the point. But let me know what you think about it. I think it's just yet another lie.